This is an interview for Peep magazine. We're joined with the original editor of the VIZ, Chris Donald, and we've finally caught up with him at the Globe Gallery in North Shields. Chris, I finally met you. Been looking at the VIZ for some years back in the day, and how's things?
Not too bad. I've not had anything to do with VIZ now since about 1999, 2000. So it's been 25 years since I did all that, which is a bit strange. And I've been mooching around working in a bookshop. I worked for BBC Newcastle for a while. And I think that's about all. I've really wanted to, I keep asking at ASDA if they'll let me round up the trolleys in the car park, be a trolley cowboy. Yeah. But they're looking for somebody younger, or I'm not sure.
Or someone with a bit less experience.
Yeah, that's it, because they think, oh, you're overqualified, you're going to want more, you're going to move on.
Am I right in thinking you worked with Barbados Books?
That's right, yes. I was at Barbados Books from about 2000 till 2004-5, something like about 5 years working on and off. Started off just as a part-time salesperson and on the counter and stocking the shelves. And I ended up as assistant manager, which wasn't nearly as much fun as just being a staff member.
It's a bit too much admin for you, maybe.
Well, not the admin so much, just the kind of the politics of having to be the boss, and so people aren't. That you can't skive basically, and if you see somebody skiving, you have to tell them to stop skiving.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Not the kind of role for everyone, is it?
It's not. No, I've never really been a managerial type.
How do you feel when people talk about the VIZ? Are you sick of hearing it, or do you like thinking back? Do you like having a bit of memory lane about the VIZ?
No, I like a bit of nostalgia. I'm not so keen when you see people sometimes come up and say, oh yeah, I used to buy the VIZ, and talk about it very much in the past tense, because obviously to them it is in the past tense, and to me it's in the past tense, but it's still very much published. It's still a successful magazine. It comes out still I think it's 10 times a year now, and they still do books, and it's the people that I worked with and who I took on in the first place who are now running it, and it's doing very well. But yeah, there's obviously the demographic of the audience is like older now, because I remember at the start we would be selling the comic to kids in record shops, and they would be 15, 16, 14 maybe, and they thought it was really risky and cutting edge. And then it got to a stage where you do book signings on Northumberland Street, and instead of the kids, it was their parents coming in asking you to sign it for their kids for Christmas. And so suddenly it had become like a legitimate thing that parents would give to their kids for. And I thought at the time, ooh, that's significant. It's not going to be... I'll have to apologise as my voice squeaks. A bridge fell out of my mouth. A tooth. A crown. So I'm going to do a bit of a squeak. I just noticed it there. Yeah, but you realised it had gone legitimate. And it didn't have that kind of, it wasn't the, it was like legalised, and people, it wasn't quite as exciting. And the audience, basically, we had 1 million people buying it in them days, back in the day, and they were 20, 25 then, and they're now 30, 55, 60, like me.
Yeah, because I've done a bit of research on it. When the VIZ actually sold, did a guy called James Brown buy the magazine?
Yes, James Brown was. He used to do a magazine in Leeds. I think it was called Attack on Bazag or something like that. It was a music fanzine, and he would send me copies of his magazine, and I would send him copies of his. That was in the very early days when we were just DIYing. And he went on to work for the NME, and he's a bit of a pushy twat, and he ended up with his own publishing company, because he got into the sort of the London 1980s cocaine businessmen scene. And I'm not suggesting for one moment that he took drugs, but he bloody did, because I went on holiday with him once. Well, we went to watch a cricket match in Barbados, me and the VIZ publisher John Brown. And we got to the hotel, and he booked the room. The island was full because of the cricket being on. And the guy on the counter says, I'm sorry, but your room's taken. You've already taken it. You've checked in. And John said, well, I haven't checked in. Here we are, like twin room. under the name of J. Brown. He said, no, well, there's a J. Brown has just checked in and got that room. And I said to John as a joke, they sent us to the bar, and I said to John, I said, I bet it's the other J. Brown I know, James Brown. And we walked through the bar, and sitting in the bar was James Brown. And I said, you fucking bastard, you've got our room. But no, on that holiday, he did Nowt but smoke dope and like misbehave. He was terrible.
I have heard a little rumour about James Brown, but I don't know if it's true, and I don't want to. I wouldn't say incriminate, but I read a few years ago that James Brown. I can't think of the magazine, but I think you may have touched on it. But before he put it out, he grossed more than £1 million in ad sales in the first week. Would that sound like it?
He was very, very much the talk of the town in publishing. He was anything he touched would turn to gold. And he did, I think it was Loaded he was involved in, and that was very, lad mags and all that. And then he came up with an idea. He went kind of haywire. He came up with a really weird magazine, and he invited me down to London. He says, I'm having a secret meeting to introduce me new magazine or show it to people. Top secret, you don't tell anyone. And he produced this magazine with a lion on the cover, and basically it was National Geographic. He didn't realise there was already a magazine full of like things about the animals and that, and geography. So that didn't work very well. But I think it was the drugs that had made him think that was going to work. I don't know. I mean, he should have stuck to football and that, because he was good at football and music.
Well done, James Brown. I know we haven't met, but if you want to have a chat with people, I'll be more than happy to have a chat with you.
I've not seen him for a while.
I read that your influences were back to the VIZ again. We'll just touch on the VIZ again, but is it true that your influences were Monty Python and Spike Milligan?
Well, yeah, the Goons and Monty Python. When we were kids, my dad had some Goons records which we would listen to. So we were influenced by the Goons, and I think we had a Goons book. And then when we started using a record library around the corner, we'd take out Monty Python albums, because we didn't have a telly when we were kids, because my dad, he couldn't afford it, or he thought it was bad for you or something. But for a long time, we didn't see Monty Python all the time. But yeah, Monty Python, the Goons, and Tintin and the printed things, because people would imagine that I subscribed to the Beano and the Dandy and that, but I didn't, because if you were a fan of something like that, you'd be too kind of intimately, knowledgeable and enthusiastic about it. My view was always a kind of distant one, and just sort of, I imagine the Beano is like this and the Dandy's like that, and that's how you can take the piss out of something if you've only got a vague idea, the gist of it, like what most people would have.
You see, I take it, did you used to do some of the illustrations?
Sorry?
Did you do some of the illustrations?
In the comic, yeah, I did. Well, I did about half of them to start with. I'm not very good at cartoons. I took people on who were better illustrators, the likes of Simon Thorpe and Davy Jones, who's here actually tonight, who are just geniuses when it comes to drawing stuff, and Graham Dury as well. He came on in leaps and bounds, the lad from Nottingham, when we took him on. So basically I was writing and editing more, writing the news stories, things like that. We wrote cartoons as a group, just sitting around a table, and I would hold the pen, and people would chuck ideas in, and people would take offence if you didn't write their idea down, so you had to develop the art of pretending to write down somebody's idea. But that's what the subtleties of editing.
I've always wanted to ask you, were you ever a fan of 2000 AD? Because I used to illustrate years ago, and I always wanted to draw for 2000 AD, and I wanted to ask you, what was your take on 2000 AD? The early stuff.
The early stuff. Well, I had a newspaper around, so I read all sorts of stuff. And 2000 AD, I didn't like American sort of comics. I didn't like the Freak Brothers and stuff like that. I found that a little bit. But no, 2000 AD, I was a fan of Dan Dare and stuff like that in the past, and the Eagle. And that was just carrying on from that, and it seemed fine, and I liked it. My brother was more of a comic aficionado than me, Simon. But no, I was okay with 2000 AD.
And then I've also got to ask, because we've interviewed him, did you ever cross paths with or feature in the VIZ magazine, The Hard, Felt Nowt?
Jesus Christ, yeah.
I've actually interviewed him, and he gave with the exclusive. He went, I wouldn't say underground, but he went, he moved away from Newcastle because he used to do the tube.
I think he went to Lincoln. The two guys who are here tonight, Arthur Two-Stroke and Andy Pop, they set up a record label in 1978, 79, and they brought out his album, Anna Ford's Bum. And that was, so I knew him through them, when he was Wavis O Shave, because he kept changing his name. And, he kept saying, what is his real name? What is his real name? And it's Rod Stewart, it's this, it's that. Just changes all the time. But me and Simon, actually, he appeared on the back cover of issue 10. We needed to take a photograph of him as the Hard, because he was getting quite well known off the tube. So we went to take a photo, and he lived in a house in South Shields, Stoddart Street in South Shields. And we turned up at the door of his house, and his mum opened the door, and it's this old lady. And she says, there's a couple of lads here to see you. And she went into the kitchen to make a cup of tea, and we sat in the front room with him. And he's a very intelligent bloke, and he can be very sort of,
I think I know where you're going with this.
Talkative and all that. But he's also strange, very strange, and so is his mum. And he's talking to you, all making perfectly good sense. That's Andy Pop there. It's all making good sense. And then he's talking, he was obsessed with the Greek god Pan for some reason, who's half man and half goat. And he says, I'll tell you what, he said, the other night the Greek god Pan visited the house, and his mum comes in with a trolley with tea on it and biscuits. And she says, Mum, what? He said, Mum, what was it like when the Greek god Pan come through that wall, right by the window? And she says, yes, that's right, he come through the wall. And we're just, oh, fucking hell, they're mad. But I think it was his mum's coping mechanism just to say, the Greek god Pan came through that wall.
I think we've done two interviews with him now, and I marketed it as the first UK surrealist comedian. So he's up there, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's brilliant at what he does, and there's bits of it that are really, really... He's like a band who every now and then they get onto something really good, but then they'll do 3 not that good albums. But I don't know what he does for the rest of his life. He was convinced that the lost city of Atlantis was somewhere underneath Yorkshire or something at one point. And he seems to go through phases of being interested in different things. I still hear from him sometimes. I'll see either WhatsApp or something. I'll just get something from Fofo Spear Jig.
So, big up the Hard. Felt Nowt. Well, I didn't realise you were kind of a Patreon of the Globe Gallery. So, how did that come about, Chris? Was this in the VIZ times?
Yeah, but Rashida, who runs the gallery, she met Colin, who's a photographer. He was our photographer. Well, he did work for us, but only on Sundays when we were doing the VIZ photo stories. And we'd have to go around getting people to star in them. And what we generally did was went to a pub and said to whoever was in the pub on the bar, can you find us 3 women or 2 blokes and 1 woman for, blokes with different colour hair so they look different, and can they be at the pub at 11 o'clock on Sunday, and we'll pick them up and do the photo story. So they would find students usually who were about the right age and that. And one day we were struggling and we went to the Barley Mow, and the barmaid agreed to do a photo story, and that was Rashida. And so Colin's taking photographs, and she was in the story, and they seemed to click a little bit. And next thing you know, they were going out, and then they got married. So she decided, I don't know how, 30 years ago, that she wanted to open a gallery, and I lent her some money, or I sponsored it or something. And we agreed to do the first exhibition with VIZ artwork and stuff. And that she's been going ever since.
I think we've got a mutual friend as well, because didn't you have something to do with the Trent House with Tom?
Yeah, Tom Corker. All 3. Well, there was 3 Corkers that I knew. There was Steve Corker, Porker Corker. I shared a flat with him for a couple of years. Tom, Talker Corker, and Clive, who's Walker Corker, because he just walks the streets. He goes for walks a lot. But Tom's a big part of VIZ, and because he was incredibly enthusiastic about things the way he is, and he would sell it in the pub and stuff like that. And happy days they were. The Tent House about 1984, 85.
Are you still doing or wanting to do your radio show? Is it the Soul Comeback or
the Imaginary Soul Club? Well, I did. I used to listen to this. I'd be in the car a lot on a Sunday or a Saturday when the BBC Newcastle Soul programme was on, and the guy who had done it, I don't know who it was, had stopped doing it, and they had a woman doing it, Sue Sweeney, and she wasn't very good, to be honest. But they only rotated about 200 records, I think it was, and I knew the guy who ran BBC Newcastle because he used to work for 5 Live, and he'd interviewed me once. And so I stayed in touch with him because we had a mutual interest in a band from Birmingham called The Bureau. And anyway, I used to keep sending him messages saying that your soul program's shit. You want to do this, you want to do that. And eventually he just said, "Do you want to do it?" And I went, "Oh God, that's not what I meant." And he said, "Well, give it a try." So I did it for BBC Newcastle for a few years, probably three and a half years. But then COVID came along, and I started off with their playlist of 200 and kept adding to it until it got up to 2,000 and stuff. I had to do all the paperwork myself, though, because to play a record that's not on their playlist, you've got to fill in forms and shit. But I did all that. I went through all the hoops for them, but nobody listened to it, basically. The viewing figures were quite low because radio is just on the way out. And also, a friend of mine was stopped in the street by the people who do the survey to see because they work out your listenership just by asking random people what they listen to. Someone I know was stopped in the street and said, "Would you fill in a form for a couple of weeks saying what you listen to on the radio?" And they said, "Oh yeah, if you want I'll take another one and I'll get my son to do it." And they said to me, I was given 2 Radjar forms to fill in, so I'll be saying that I listen to your programme every week. And I went, "Oh, great." And my listenership for that month or for that quarter went up from 0, which it normally was, to 35,000 because 2 people were filling in the form. But then the following quarter it went back down to 0. So radio, the BBC local radio's changed now. They don't have locally produced stuff in the evening. Nah, people don't listen anymore. So I did it on Nova radio for a while, but that's in Nova's. It used to be NE1. And I was doing it for Nowt, but it's in a state of disarray. They're not on FM and they're not on DAB anymore, and the app isn't available on Apple anymore. It's not very well run, sort of thing. And I had 12 listeners, but and I'm sorry to let them down, but I stopped doing it earlier this year.
Before I forget, Chris, just the last question on the VIZ. I was down. It was about 2 years ago. I was down at the on the quayside where back in the day they used to have stalls and all that, and you could buy magazines and you could buy records. It's starting to pick up again now, but I haven't been for years, right? And such a strange thing happened. I was just browsing the comics and looking at the old 2008 ADs and whatnot, and there happened to be like an absolutely monstrous collection of VIZ comics.
All right.
There would have to have been about 400 to 500 in a crate. And I was just looking through them, and the guy says, "Are you interested?" I was like, "Oh no, mate, I'm just having a look." As soon as I said this, someone appeared behind us, and I'm thinking, have you got a son?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've got 2 sons.
Right. So because what struck us was someone appeared behind us, and he kind of looked like you, and he went, "How much for the lot?" And the guy, I don't know what the guy said. The guy said about 1.5 or something, and the person just paid it, took the lot.
My kids wouldn't buy VIZ.
I'm just thinking he looked so much like it. It was such a surreal moment.
I might have a double going round, or maybe I am. Maybe I'm lying, and I'm just going around buying up second-hand.
It wasn't you, was it?
Much in order to bump the prices up, I have actually bought stuff. We did a tea towel and an issue it'd be around about 1984, 85, we printed a tea towel. It was when we did our 25th issue, we call it the 25th anniversary tea towel, and it had all posters, cartoons on it, the characters, and sold them by mail order in the comic, and that was all. And then years later, about 2000, after I'd finished, I thought, I've got a copy of everything, but I haven't got that tea towel, never thought to keep one. And so I went online and I found one for sale on eBay, and I bought it. I paid about 125 quid for it, and it arrived in an envelope. The envelope the guy had received it in, and it with his name and address on it, handwritten by me in my writing. He said, so he bought it, kept it all that time, and then sold it back to me for 125 quid.
It was meant to be yours.
Yeah.
Chris, thanks for the time. Really appreciate you taking the time out, because I know there's a lot of people here want to have a chat to you. Can I just ask, what plans have you got for the future, and what have you got planned? If you don't mind us asking.
The next thing I was thinking of was a concert poster. No, don't worry about that. Keeping the pink in concert. Now, the things that I'm thinking of at the minute, Simon, me and my brother started doing a show called Donald Trump's. We did that would be just before COVID, and it was getting quite popular. We had 220 people come to see us at the stand. It was like a cross between stand-up and like a game show. And that was good fun. I enjoyed it. It was getting very, very popular, and then we've just stopped doing that. So I'd like to look into doing that again. Maybe it's me and Simon just doing some stuff. But well, he's meant to be here. Yeah, he's probably. I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet. But yeah.
Do you want to go through these like very quickly, like a quick fire?
Well, if you want to.
Yeah, mate. Definitely.
I could do an order I did them in. Tynemouth, which is. It's a poster by, I think he's called Albert Bartlett or something, Alfred Bartlett. So anyway, it's a classic sort of 1920s poster for Tynemouth, and all I did was I decided that there was two Edwardian ladies in sun hats and that, and a gentleman in a blazer sitting overlooking the beach, and I just changed it to a couple of lasses eating chips and a bloke in a hoodie drinking wine and a dog having a piss. With the plaza burnt down and the outdoor swimming pool in a state of dereliction. The ministry, yeah. I worked at the ministry for a couple of years, 2.5 years in 1978 to 80. And it's a fantastic place. It's very much like a holiday camp because it's like all self-contained. The little single-story blocks were actually built by German prisoners of war during the war. And it opened in 1947 as the sort of headquarters for the new national insurance scheme. And it was called the Ministry of Pensions. So everyone still calls it the ministry. And I wanted to do like a Skegness type poster, holiday poster with a difference. So I was advertising holidays at the ministry with the lady there with a hole punch in her hand. That's my hole punch that I nicked from when I worked at the ministry. And that's all proper ministry paperwork that I kept as souvenirs.
Wow. Next one is Please Don't Come to Darras Hall.
Yes, that's that's my favourite one actually, because Darras Hall did have a station, but it was only open for 16 years, from like about 1913 to 1929. But nobody used it because they all had cars because it's such a posh estate. Yeah. So I've basically done a poster, an imaginary poster that the railway would have printed, just to tell people not to come to Darras Hall because the station is closed, and basically they're not welcome because they would be lowering the tone if they came.
Football specials, have an away day, travel by train.
Yeah, the posters for football excursions, they used to call them, were a bit dull, and I just fancied it. I like drawing trains because I'm a big train fan. But I remembered when I was a kid in the 70s going to football and being a train spotter, the football special trains would be all old, knackered carriages and that, because they knew there was going to be hooligans breaking them up. And there would be like gangs of kids roaming around trying to attack the away supporters and everything, and barking dogs. So I thought I'd try and capture that in one picture. And the long Benton clockwork graffiti, that's authentic. That's off It was at Four Lane Ends metro station in 1980, and I've took it off a photograph because the Long Benton clockwork were a gang, or it was one bloke with a can of spray paint anyway. And I always used to be a fan of the Long Benton clockwork.
Brilliant. Have you actually drawn them, Chris?
It's a combination, it's a mixture of all sorts of things. It's all done in Photoshop, but I have drawn it all with the computer, but using photographs of, it's basically a jigsaw of millions of different photographs, and then I draw over the top of them.
Absolutely brilliant. Cars, no way.
Cars, yeah.
Cars, no way, not in Whitley Bay.
Yeah, I went to Whitley Bay to see if I could think of a poster for there, and they've got this new cycle path, and I hate cyclists, me. No, I don't. But they keep like knocking you over, and well, they don't knock you over, but they've got their new own pink road in Whitley Bay now, and apparently it's been a bit controversial. Yeah. So I thought, I'll utilise that controversy. I just wanted to do like a kind of a Tour de France style poster. And I thought, well, I can combine a touristy poster for Whitley Bay and a Tour de France poster by making it about cyclists.
Lovely. And I'm really interested in this one. This is get to Gateshead by train, get Carter with... He ends up throwing him off the car park, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's him out of Coronation Street, who was trying to open a restaurant at the top of the car park.
Cliff as well, by the way.
Yeah. Well, that's a Cliff. Yeah, that's Cliff Mabumbi or something. Yeah. Well, I was interested in Get Carter because when I was 11, our next door neighbour was called Jolly Jim Falconer. And he was involved in the gaming industry, and he would have fruit machines delivered to his front door and stuff. My dad didn't like him, didn't trust him as far as he could spit. But he had a red Jaguar, fantastic red Jaguar, and the people from the Get Carter film crew asked him if they could use his as a working model in the filming, because the one they had was like a write-off, so they could push it in the river and everything. So it's our next door neighbour's car that appears in the film. So I thought, that's a good idea. I'll do a Get Carter poster for Gateshead, and then give us an excuse to draw a train, the Deltic, because I was a train spotter. Wow. And I also drew the car park. That was easy because it's all straight lines.
That's brilliant. I absolutely love that. Mess about at Morpeth.
This is a cross between... Well, it's a drawing. I did the drawings of the street and that and the clock tower, but I've copied the main figures, or at least three of them, from a famous, well-known Whitley Bay poster called Life is Gay at Whitley Bay, where those people are like in a sort of pleasure boat and they're just having fun at Whitley Bay. And I've took them and put them on Oldgate in Morpeth, or in the Market Square, and in a life raft instead of a pleasure boat, because Morpeth's always flooding, or it used to be. Yeah. So the idea is that, you can have fun in Morpeth while it's flooding. The people of Morpeth will probably not like it, but they've got a good cheese shop there, though, that I can highly recommend. It's called The Cheese Shop, but it's just down that street. It's just behind there, I think.
The imaginative The Cheese Shop.
Yeah.
And we have Viralanda, Dramatic Kingdom of Dowdy Drab.
Yeah, Viralanda is as opposed to Vindolanda, or is it Vindaloo? Yeah, Vindolanda. Is that the name of the Roman fort in Wallsend? I think it is. Vindolanda, yeah. It's a Roman fort anyway in Wallsend. And I changed it to Viralanda because there's loads of railway posters promoting Northumberland, and they always have pictures of the Roman wall on. And I thought it would be a bit more exciting and a bit more relevant today if it had Vera on it, because like you see Northumberland and that, the backdrop in Vera is always beautiful scenery in Northumberland and that. So I thought, let's get her in and let's sort of use a little bit of artistic imagination and put Holy Island Castle on the Roman wall instead of stuck out in the middle of nowhere in the sea. I think there's Warkworth Castle and Bamborough Castle. They're all on the Roman wall now. I'm regretting, I was just saying to my wife this morning, I should have put the Tyne Bridge and the Sage at Gateshead in there as well. I might add them later to later editions of the poster. But,
Chris, thank you so much. You've been more than kind to show us round and show us your work, and I think the work's absolutely brilliant, and I wish you all the best of luck in the future.
Oh, thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for your time. Cheers, Chris.